right, welcome into Big Hitters Only. It is Thursday, December 12th at 6:08 p.m. Two big-time guests. This is Bryn's second appearance on Big Hitters Only. He was an early guest live from He's Not, and he was not allowed to do it per his contract. And we have a first-time appearance, my former podcast and video host, Jeff Schoettmer from, what is it, the Shot and Vit podcast at Inside Carolina?
Yep.
So two former UNC players, Bryn Renner obviously played quarterback at UNC, and Jeff Schoettmer, linebacker and part of the 2015 ACC Coastal Championship team. All right, we are 24 hours into the Bill Belichick era at UNC. Bryn, let's get your initial takes. Take us through where your mind was, where it went, and where it is now with this hire. Let's fire off some takes and get the energy going here.
Yeah, I really, this is probably the happiest I've been to be a Carolina Tar Heel in a long time. And it feels like I recommitted to the university just because Bill Belichick is our head coach. And I mean that with all sincerity. You can feel the electricity. When you turn on ESPN, it's there. When you see him at the press conference, it's authentic. It feels like we're back. And I don't know if anybody's watched a documentary on just getting fired up, but just I feel that electricity. I feel the emotion. I feel I'm heading Chapel Hill in 24 hours just to be around the area because we're back, and I feel like that's what we needed. I want to commend the board of trustees. I want to commend Bubba, commend Lee Roberts, everybody that was in the trenches with this, because they deserve a ton of credit to get this done. We just got a 5-star recruit as our head football coach. And the best of all time. I mean, right now, you should be a Tar Heel fan. And if you're a recruit, you need to get in the portal and get on board. And, it's a really exciting time. And I couldn't be more excited to be a Tar Heel right now.
All right, Jeff, I heard you on yesterday's Inside Carolina podcast. You had a pretty good monologue. Let's get a version of that, but spice up and add some stuff to it. What are your initial thoughts? Take us through your mindset, too, from, 10 days ago to now?
Overnight, North Carolina became a national championship contender, and maybe not in 25, but guaranteed 26, 27. I mean, I can feel I'm in Dallas, Texas right now, and I can feel the electricity from here. I mean, I walk into my office this morning with people that don't even know college athletics and get-ups on the TV, and people are talking about, we got Stephen A. Smith talking about UNC football. We got random coworkers who don't know what UNC is, and they're coming up to me. You got Bill Belichick as your head coach? What's going on? So just start right there with the amount of exposure that we're getting with the greatest football coach of all time to be our, lead our university. And you watch his press conference and to see how Bill Belichick doesn't show a lot of emotion, but to hear him talk about the university and the way he did, calling it the greatest, public university in the country, and just you could feel the excitement that he had for a new challenge.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing more I can say. I tweeted this out last week. I said, if North Carolina hires Bill Belichick as their head coach, they will win a college football playoff championship. Not get to the college. I think we'll win it. That's how strongly I believe in Bill Belichick. Bryn Renner is the biggest Tom Brady fan of all time. And when Tom Brady tweeted something about the Tar Heels, Bryn, was beside himself. But we can go on about Bill's accolades, but
yeah,
and we'll get, but he's the GOAT, and now he's leading our university with an inordinate amount of money. So win for all.
Yeah, we'll get into a lot of that, including kind of the offense and also the NIL commitment. But all right, so I covered the team for 8-10 years and still am around the program a lot. I was getting texts from people out of the woodworks. I can't imagine what y'all have got. What's been the reaction from just any people that you would never think you'd heard from, your fellow former players and alums? What's been the interactions and the reactions from the group chats you have with former players and teammates and classmates? Bryn?
Yeah, I really can't describe it. It felt like the band was getting back together, I would say. And, we all are extremely excited. I know I can speak on behalf of all the alumni and everybody who's, stepped on the blade of grass in Keenan. I feel like I've talked to everybody. And They're excited. There's a newfound of I'm coming back to the Chapel Hill. There's looking at the schedule. What games are we going to? And this is December. We're still almost a year away, 200 some odd days away from the first kick. But I think we're seeing the national impact of a figure that is a once in a lifetime generational coach. I don't think there's ever going to be another Coach Belichick. And that is fair to say. What he's done with his background, his knowledge. And I think, something that we're talking about as kind of the alumni with former football players is the teaching that's going to be involved for the young men that are going to be at our university. And I mean that from learning football. Jeff and I talk about this, and we go back and forth, and we talk about situational football. We talk about, getting your head across on a reach block, fill in the A gap, timing and footwork. From top to bottom, you're going to learn those skills. And I think, what we're excited about from the football alumni standpoint is we're getting a first-class individual to represent our university to teach the game of football, and we're becoming a football school now. And we're entering that conversation.
Jeff,
Hey,
any your reaction?
Ross asked Bryn about, group chats and that sort of thing. And Bryn got into a deep rabbit hole and got to head across on reach blocks. So kudos to Bryn. But
that's it.
The group chats are buzzing. I had to text some of my friends. I'm like, what do you guys do for work? Because I've gotten 200 texts in the last 10 minutes. I haven't been able to look at my phone that quickly.
Yeah, we had a couple guys take off work today.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Everyone from guys in the NFL are excited. The guys that, were walk-on long snappers to all ACC, like everyone in between is fired up. As expected. Yeah.
You got like Armando Bacot tweeting at Arch Manning. I got so many friends and people coming out of the woodworks. Like that just shows you the interest. It's such a big name. Like there is no other person UNC could have hired that would have created this amount of buzz. It's unbelievable. Like I still can't believe it.
He's bigger than football. Like he's on par with Taylor Swift and like
wow.
Just in terms of like worldwide fame. Bill Belichick is
football side of things.
I don't know. I think.
Okay. So Jeff, you were on the staff for I think 2 years or so. In the next 4 years? Oh damn, my bad. And Bryn, you've been in NFL locker rooms, college locker rooms. What is like the next? Like, what do you want to see from Belichick and his staff until spring practice starts? Like, talk us through what's going to be on the docket. Obviously, there's staff hires, but kind of talk. What do you want to see? What do you think is going to happen? What's going to be different from what he does versus what another coach could do? What's the next 2 months look like?
To be honest,
I think. Go ahead, Jeff.
He asked me, Bryn. You're jumping in here.
Jeff,
my bad.
Listen up. To be honest, as a fan, I don't want to see or hear anything about Carolina football that goes inside the building until spring practice. Just because they're putting their head down and grinding for the next, school starts January 7th or whatever. They're going to have a team meeting January 6th and workouts begin the next morning. So what they're going to do is obviously the off-season conditioning program, and whoever Bill hires as his strength conditioning coordinator is going to just put them through grueling workouts, just like any other college program. But what Bill's going to start to do is lay the groundwork of his culture. Tom Brady talks about the Patriot way. Well, Bill Belichick is going to take that mantra, that culture building, and implement it into UNC. I think he's going to have a little bit different twist, but he's going to start implementing his core values, teaching them toughness, what is important to him, competition, etc. Being a smart football player, like things that we have not emphasized as much in the past. So from January up until spring ball, it's going to be obviously grueling workouts. Like, I don't think Bill Belichick is going to get this strength coach that it is just going to make our players that much bigger, faster, stronger. But what he's going to do is start teaching them scheme, teaching them situational football, teaching them, anything relative to the game of football to better help them have success in the long term. But, that's pretty standard. So,
Bryn?
I think if you take it, from an NFL standpoint of what happens after a season's concluded, first you evaluate your roster. Who do we have? And Mike Lombardi, who I think is a football wizard in his own right, really did a good job on Pat McAfee's show. I recommend everybody go watch that, 15 minutes that he was on there. Evaluate the talent and grade every player that's in the building. And, we have tape on those guys so you can watch tape. And then, from a recruiting perspective and a general management perspective, let's start nationally recruiting. I understand, the pipeline that we've had in the past is Carolina, Virginia. Let's expand that and let's get everybody involved and really kind of take the approach of this is free agency and dive into the transfer portal and really see what our roster is, what we need, what the value of those players are, and don't just go get a player because he's a 5-star. Go get a player because it's something that we need that's not in the building. And they're going to do that. I mean, that's why we're all excited, because it's a proven case study on how to be a professional and how to run a program. And that's, I think, why everyone's excited, because you have somebody that's in charge that is a leader that has proven himself to be a consistent winner over time.
What do you think? What do you want to see from the staff? I'm super intrigued to how it goes, because all we know now is Freddie Kitchens is going to stay on staff, and Michael Lombardi is the GM. Like, what direction would you like to see them go, Bryn?
Yeah, I think the quarterback and the offensive coordinator relationship, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's the most important in football. I think those guys being on the same page, and you look at the guys, and I'm just going to use NFL examples, the McVays and the Staffords, they're on the same page. The Drew Breeses back in the day and Sean Paytons, the Ben Johnsons and now Jared Goffs, that relationship is really vital. And, I can speak from experience on how those guys need to be in sync. So I think that's the number one hire is those two positions, probably offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. And then I think the second thing is offense and defensive line. I think nowadays you have to run the football. And you have to establish some sort of running attack. And I think going to get an offensive line coach, I mean, he had Dante Scarnecchia, who's the best offensive line coach probably ever. And he kept rehiring him even after he retired because he needed him so bad. And those are things that he's going to have to go and get and lean on people and say, he's got such a pipeline of well coaches that he's already groomed in his 24 years of being a pro football coach. So getting guys on staff that understand him and what he wants is probably going to be the biggest thing, as you mentioned, Ross.
Jeff, you have any takes on kind of staff ideas? Like, I want him to get some college guys in, some guys that can recruit locally, North Carolina, Georgia, but he could go very heavy NFL with all his Patriot connections. Like, what do you kind of expect? What do you want?
I do think he's going to go heavy NFL coaches. Maybe we'll see some guys, Matt Patricia, Josh Daniels, some guys like that, Joe Judge, like guys that were with him through thick and thin in New England. Who knows if he goes and gets those guys? I do personally believe he's going to hire some youngish guys that have been in college football.
Yeah.
Just to help him navigate. I don't think he's just going to go all 10 assistants be former guys that worked with him in New England. But honestly, nothing would surprise me. And I there's a lot of coaches out there at big time programs that have a couple guys that are labeled as recruiters. Me personally, I don't think Bill's going to do that because he knows that he can attract anyone based off of his reputation. He doesn't need to quote unquote get these recruiting gurus that can just build these relationships. He's bringing in ball coaches that can teach and lead, and he knows that his brand is going to attract the top talent no matter what. So that's what I think.
Yeah, you saw that with his appearance on McAfee on Monday. Like, he was selling what he would do at Carolina to recruits when he said, like, this is going to be a pathway to the NFL. You come here, you get developed. It's going to be built like an NFL program to get you ready for the NFL, which is very intriguing. I mean, you talk to any of these kids, it's all about get me to the NFL, get me to the NBA, and if he's laying that blueprint to get there, that's going to be a big part of his recruiting pitch. Now,
Ross, I want to chime in. High school kids, why is there balloons and stuff?
Hey, you're just that excited, buddy. You're that excited.
Okay, high school recruits and transfer kids, they want two things. They want money and they want to go to the NFL. They really don't give a shit about education. They don't really give a shit about the school, the atmosphere. They want to get paid, which we have money now. Yep. And they want to get developed to go to the NFL, which we have the greatest talent developer recruiter, team manager of all time. So we have those two things at North Carolina now. In the past, we didn't, but we have those two. That's what these players nowadays want. So we're ahead of the game.
Yeah. And Jeff, I texted with you a couple days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, day before, about Lombardi. You spoke super highly of him, and so did you, Bryn. Tell us why, because this is what I think. As an outsider, like, dude, this guy was unemployed, been with Belichick the whole time, maybe a yes man, like older, hasn't done college. That's how I think. Why is that wrong?
Your eye for talent never leaves you. I mean, he's been around the game. He was in the NFL for 25, 30 years. I don't know the exact number. And then, he's been doing podcast stuff for the last 10 years or so. But he's still sharpening his axe while he's doing podcast stuff. Like, just because he was a talent evaluator at age 30 doesn't mean he's lost his juice. Like, he can still go into a high school gym, watch 50 guys work out, and find the best athletes. So what I liked what he said was, we're going to whatever guys we bring in that have certain strengths, we are going to tailor our offense and defense to their strengths. We're not just going to have this end all be all scheme and like, you have to fit our mold. We're going to develop our scheme around our talent. And I think that was sidetracked from Lombardi, but I've listened to him on his podcast because Tate Frazier, I knew him back in college. So when he started working with Mike, I was listening to their podcast, and he is brilliant in terms of, I mean, first of all, he's a phenomenal speaker, and he's, he has great insight on NFL games. So if he's able to watch the NFL like that, he can do the same at the high school and pro level. I mean, high school and college level. So I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, just to piggyback along with Jeff, I've read his book. I've watched his podcast. I listened to him on McAfee. That guy understands football and understands how to build a team. And when you get two guys in a room that see the game the same way and can piece together a team, when you piece together a team, it's not just going to get the best players, it's the best players that fit what you want to do. And I think that's different than just going to get the best talent and say, hey, guys, go figure it out. Well, it's combining the coaches. It's combining, you're putting together, kind of a mixed bag of personalities, as he said today. You have to go get guys that are different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses. How can we, you have to evaluate talent. And I think they've been doing that for such a long time. They understand how to build a program. And, the college football landscape, and I think this is why Coach Belichick took the job, was you have full control over everything now. And the floodgates are open. And if you can get to a kid when he's 18 years old and say, if you do this technique, you lift this way, and you train your body this way, you have a chance to play at the next level. That's what we all want to hear. And Jeff mentioned it at 18 years old. And along the way, there might be side things that happen. You might get hurt. You might, not like your playing time. You're going to get a great education, but you're around professionals. And I think that's the one thing that I'm excited about is these guys are professionals. They're not amateurs. They've been dealing with guys like Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, Gronk, Rodney Harrison. I mean, the list of Hall of Famers that he has trained at a professional level that come out on ESPN for our recruiting pitch for the last 48 hours. I mean, we've been on the recruiting pitch for the last 48 hours of social media, ESPN. I mean, every single network has said raving reviews about go to Carolina. And now it's finally coming to fruition.
Also coached Aaron Hernandez. All right. That's a little dark joke there.
That was
R.I.P.
You're listening to the players he had. All right. Where else do you want to go? Like, I mean, I'm pumped. Like, I still can't believe it. Go, Bryn.
I kind of want to go one more wave. And I think this, I did the radio, had the opportunity to work for Learfield with Jones Angel, who's phenomenal. But we need butts in the seats. We need people there. We need to make this place special. And we need to do it with the NIL collectives. We need to do it with showing up early and often and getting the buzz around Carolina football and making it, where the kids really want to be here. And I'm not saying that wasn't done in the past. But Jeff and I both played, and we played in packed out stadiums. And I understand when you get a head coach of this caliber, this really helps. But let's commit to winning from a fan base perspective and from a donor's perspective. Let's commit to winning from all aspects, because college football is something special. I think you can't, the NFL and college football, I think, is, potentially going to take over the NFL. because you're getting alumni from an extremely wide fan base nationally. And we all want Carolina to be successful. Everyone lives in different cities now. Jeff lives in Dallas and I live in DC. But the one thing we have in common, Carolina football. And that will never leave us. So if we could rally around, and this is going out to every single fan. We need butts in the seats. We need season ticket holders. We need everybody to get around.
There's certainly more of excitement now around football, and you're going to see more money come in. You're going to see season tickets go up. I think one thing to talk about is the NIL commitment, because you read the $20 million now that's committed that was going around yesterday. And like last year, it seemed like Max said they only had 4 for NIL. You get the $20 million plus the 21 from rev share that's going to come this year as well. I mean, you're having 40 roughly, because not all the rev shares that go to football, but roughly 40 million plus whatever they get coming off this hire. I mean, that's a significant war chest to go get talent that they didn't have before. So you combine that with what Belichick's selling and the development, the NFL path, with just the natural, like Belichick talked about a lot. I mean, it's very complimentary of UNC as a school, as an institution, as a place, as a national program. And then he mentioned about national recruiting, once to get the best people out of North Carolina, but also from a national standpoint. The big part about this hire, whether it's successful or not, is it's laying the groundwork for the future of UNC football, getting to the SEC in 10 years. The money's there. They found the money. It's I think $20 million is just a couple calls for UNC alums. I heard MJ was involved, along with some other big donors. I mean, so that it shows a commitment to football now to compete on the SEC Big Ten level that was needed, that now sets up UNC to take the next step.
What I think they're going to do with the NIL money, I could be wrong, is take 50% of the NIL money and focus on 2 positions. Focus on offense and defensive line. We've recruited high-profile defensive linemen, but Bill Belichick and Mike Lombardi know that you win in the trenches. So I think we're going to take 50% of our NIL money and go pay our offensive line, or go get some transfer offensive linemen, which we've never had. We've had transfers come in that haven't been great. Willie Lampkin was a plus for us, but go pay those 2 positions, pay 20 to 30% of the quarterback, and you can find skill positions anywhere. And I think that's what they're going to do personally. Invest in the offensive line. We haven't had a good offensive line or a positive offensive line since probably 2015, and then before that it was 2012, 2011 when Bryn was playing, and all five starters were NFL players. Yeah. So that's what we need to get back to.
UNC hasn't had a NFL lineman like a top
since Jonathan
Cooper got drafted 7th overall to the Cardinals.
Yeah, haven't had like a top 2 round guy in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all 5 of my guys, like Jeff said, if you look, I had James Hurst, 10-year pro. I had Jonathan Cooper, 7th overall pick, 10-year pro. Russell Bodine, 7-year pro. Travis Bond was drafted 3rd overall, and Jeff knows he was probably the best one there and played in the Canadian League for a couple more years. Shout out to
Not 3rd overall.
3rd round.
Third round. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
And then Brennan Williams was a 4th rounder, and he's in WWE. And those guys were, they met the measurement criteria. And I think getting off the bus looking like an NFL offensive line and defensive line is a scary situation. And that's exactly what we need to do. And you look at the blueprint that Michigan had last year of hiring Harbaugh. They ran the ball down people's throats. And it was a running, play action pass, guys were wide open type of system. And I think you can do that at North Carolina.
Hey Ross, I think we should talk about the press conference.
Yeah. Let me get one thing. I think you brought up a great point, Jeff, about how they're going to divvy out the NIL. That's the kind of the GM salary cap distribution stuff. It's like Moneyball, right? You're putting a certain amount of money on certain players. You're weighing certain positions differently. UNC's had great quarterbacks. They got Bryce Baker committed. The big thing is, can they sign him now? He's out of East Forsyth, 4-star kid. Clemson's after him. Penn State's after him. LSU's after him. He delayed his signing, so they may have a pretty stud quarterback they can roll with for the next 3 or 4 years. And they've recruited wide receiver really well in the past, like you said. Like, those are pretty easy to find. Running backs been pretty good. But, yeah, the offensive line, defensive line, those are hardest positions to find because of the physical size constraints. It's hard to find 6'6" people that are 3'10" that can move like they can. Press conference, what you got? I was there. Hit me with some questions. Thoughts?
I got 3 observations. The first I'll start with is your question to him. He didn't quite answer it. Which
what's that
to
about?
me, I loved it because it's peak Bill Belichick. Like we've seen so many clips online on the internet where a reporter asks him questions and he kind of shuns them. But you did get the Big Hitters podcast
Hey,
shout out in there, so that
that
was
was
big.
Thought about
phenomenal.
that. So I was thinking, like, maybe I just say CBS, 24/7 Sports. I was like, look, this is the only. When else am I going to be able to get this kind of publicity for it? So I went for it.
I
No, that was
loved it.
big. That was
Yeah.
big. So the other two things that stood out to me, Marty Smith asked him a question, essentially saying, "What does success look like to you at the University of North Carolina?" And I would be willing to bet 99% of head coaches that are doing their press conference are going to say, "We're going to compete for national championships. We're going to compete for conference championships. We're going to beat our rival." Bill Belichick said, success is a day by day process." He said nothing about
Yeah.
we're going to beat Duke, we're going to win the ACC Coast or win the ACC championship, we're going to go to the college football playoff. He is like, that's how he's wired, and that was so refreshing to me. Is like, each day we're just going to focus on the day ahead of us, tomorrow, what we can control in the next couple of days. And then the other thing he said was, he said football, then this is not verbatim, but he basically said football is about blocking, tackling, fundamentals, technique, and player development. He didn't say, I got this elaborate scheme, I got this top recruit. No, he boiled it down to the most basic fundamentals of football, and that was another breath of fresh air. I've been on the staff where we were like, oh, we're enamored by this 5-star, but we don't develop him while he's here. And Bill Belichick's sole purpose is, I'm going to develop the guys that we got. I'm going to teach them the best, tackling techniques, blocking techniques, throwing techniques. And so the smartest mind in football, if he's able to dumb down football to such a elementary level, that's what I'm excited about. But also he showed his sense of humor a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
he was kind of funny. He had a couple jokes, and then obviously his passion for the university. He starts talking about lacrosse, his relationship with the lacrosse coach. Like, I think he's going to fully ingrain himself in Chapel Hill, like the area.
I thought he came off great. I thought it was very impressive. Like, even more exciting if you're an alum or a fan or a player, you're even more excited. What I've heard about him is just like, he is so detail oriented when it comes to preparation. So those tackling things, the basics, the fundamentals, those should be a drastic improvement, and that will get you some wins just right off paper. Just the practicing better, preparing better. His whole thing is, Tom Brady said he was never ever underprepared. Like, he was always prepared for every situation that could happen on the football field. Bryn, you got any press conference takeaways you watched?
Just two things. He got in detail about how special of a place Chapel Hill is. And us three realized that. And everybody who's went to school there, you picked it for a reason. But in 1992, he gave an example when him and Michael Lombardi came back for a scouting trip. And they went to Chapel Hill, and they had a day there where they went on a walk and went to a baseball game and scouted. And the place is just electric. And I don't think the top coach ever to live would pick a school that wasn't what he wanted and wanted to be a part of. And that was number one. And then number two, just the amount of appreciation he had for the game of football was just off the charts for me. And his intellect to speak to the young men that he's going to create and build. He could have probably gone to different places, but he chose Chapel Hill to build an 18-year-old. And what I love is, he wants to grow young men to be professionals in whatever area that they choose in their life. And that is a foundation that everyone who's a father or a mother would want to send their son to.
Yeah, he seems all in, and I think he just loves coaching and football. That's why he didn't want to not have a job. He just he wants to coach, and it's just crazy that he ended up at UNC of all places.
I got a question for both of you guys.
Okay.
So I gave my bold statement that I truly believe that he will bring North Carolina a national championship, because people are going to look at me like I'm crazy now, but we're going to look back on this 3 years from now and you'll be like, Schott was right. Schott's locks are back.
Schott loves to be right. Just let's get that on the table.
I'm right a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Give me y'all's what do y'all define success as in Mac Brown's tenure? I want to hear it from y'all. What do y'all think is going to happen? Ross, you first.
Yeah.
Ross,
there you go, a
first.
little hosting. I mean, I think college football playoff is super realistic. I think being a top 12 team and being like 1 or 2 in the ACC is super realistic in year 3. And I think winning a championship is crazy hard. It's hard in basketball. It's just hard to win, to get to that stature and win 3 or 4. So I think success would be in year 3 and 4. You're competing for an ACC championship. You're in the ACC championship game. You're playing Clemson or Florida State or SMU, whoever's there, and then you're getting a bid to be one of those top 12 teams. And then I think success for football would be like he's establishing a level of a standard for the program that carries on whenever he leaves. Brad?
I think for me, and I'm going to have Coach speak, win the next day. You know, like what he said. I swear, I don't care. I really don't care.
No.
Yeah,
I need a bold prediction, bro.
I'm going to get there, but winning takes a lot. And I think where we were and where we want to go, there's steps to achieve that. I think he said that. But I do think Carolina has the potential to be a national powerhouse and ranked in the country and in the conversation with beating Clemson every year and beating the teams in your state every single year. Not
Mac Brown. Does Bill Belichick win an ACC championship in the next 3 years?
I think so. I really do.
Ross, what do you think?
I think in year 3, they're in the game, but they lose. I think it's tough, man. Yeah. I got a question for Bryn. How was year 1 as in the media doing Tar Heel Sports Network?
Yeah, I mean, I spent 5 years in the NFL, 5 years coaching football, and then this was my first time kind of being in the media, and Jeff knows me. I have like 2 different personalities. It's like more of like the professional version, and then it's more of like the quarterback that can't stop talking about football that has crazy opinions version. So I had to find my avenue. I think it was a lot of fun because I understood how much I loved football again, and it showed my appreciation for what you guys do and people in the media. It's hard, man. Like we were talking about before, it's hard when it's 70-30 and you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And you're looking at me and Jones are looking at each other like, oh man, like where are we going to go with this since the second quarter? And then you have, games like that come down to the wire, and you really appreciate it from a different perspective because it's hard to talk about. It's tough when you're losing. It's tough when things aren't going right in the media, and you have to kill a lot of airtime. And I want to give a shout out to Jones Angel. He is a stud and carried me on his back because there was times where I was pulling my hair out and didn't know what to say. And I think, I'm looking forward to next year. I'm looking forward to being around the team. And I think, it's all about the players for me. I think just getting them the most exposure and experience that we can is the biggest thing.
Dude, Bryn's so polished, Jeff. He's so he's always it's coach speak. It's polished. It was the same way when we had him on our podcast 2 years ago.
I know, man. I gotta let it rip at some point, man.
Hey, give him a couple of drinks, and he is a loose cannon, and it's fun to. He starts rattling off his actual.
You know what I want? What? I don't want 12 penalties versus North Carolina Central.
We're not.
I don't want a blocked punt versus JMU. I don't want a punt return for a touchdown. I don't want a pass. I don't want a unnecessary holding when you can't keep your hands inside. I don't want a face mask. I don't want a 2nd and 30 versus Boston College. What do you call there? And that's what I want to see. I want good fundamental football because I can go on a rant. I just want good fundamental football from disciplined individuals.
We're going to get it.
Awesome. It's exciting times. That's the buzzer there. Appreciate Bryn and Jeff. We have Andrew Carter coming up next. We just recapped the press conference and dove into more Bill Belichick stuff. Big hitters only guys. Rate, review, subscribe. We appreciate your time. All right, welcome back into the Big Hitters Only podcast. You just listen to Bryn and Jeff with their takes on the new hire. I want to introduce Andrew Carter for his first appearance on the Big Hitters Only podcast. Andrew covered UNC for many, many years and is now in a different role with the News and Observer. Good friends with Andrew. How would you describe your role right now, Andrew?
Yeah, just kind of those bigger stories, occasionally features and enterprise stuff, the occasional investigative piece, sometimes some news. I get to do some news stuff at the NNO, which I'm thankful for. But a lot of different weird things I get to do, which is exciting. And today was certainly one of those days that you're going to remember.
Yeah. So Andrew and I have had a lot of late nights covering UNC, a lot of late nights at the bar, ACC media days, ACC tournaments, NCAA tournaments. So we go way back and talk a lot. All right. Your first impression of this press conference. It was a big deal. Tons of people there. Probably the biggest scene. I mean, Hubert Davis was pretty big. I was there for Mac Brown's. What were your initial thoughts of like the scene, the environment? Set the scene for our listeners from the press conference today.
Yeah, I mean, this was my third one of these, I think. In fact, when I first started at the NNO, it was right after, or right before, I should say, Larry Fedora got hired. So I was at the Fedora press conference, which was, I think, almost exactly 13 years ago today, back in December 2012 or 12 years ago, whatever it was at the Mac presser. I would say this one definitely had a more festive vibe. I can't remember. I mean, Mac's was well attended because it's Mac. Everyone loved Mac. Mac had connections at UNC. I mean, I remember like all of Mac's like old booster buddies hanging out at that one. That's
and all the former players were there and stuff.
Yeah. So that one was sort of like, obviously this reunion, this welcome home 6 years ago when he came back. But yeah, I've never seen anything like what we saw today associated with UNC football. Just a number of folks that was in that room. The people crowding in there. I think you had like everyone from the athletic department. You had the trustees there. You had booster folks, Rams Club folks, obviously. I mean, just a very festive environment, obviously. You can really sense the enthusiasm. You can sense the excitement. And like Bill Belichick is a star. Like he's a star of stars in American sports. I mean, I can't think of like I was trying to think of it writing what I'm writing, like an equivalent to this in American sports where it's unprecedented in college football, obviously. I mean, it's one of the biggest, craziest coaching developments that's ever happened in college football, safe to say. And for it to happen at UNC, a place that, I'm sure you've talked about it a lot, not necessarily known for its historic football success, but this notion that the school is going all in, that, the money people are behind it, that the administration is behind it, and to go out and swing this big and come back with Bill Belichick. And granted, there are some reasons for skepticism. My colleague Luke DeCock has written about it. I don't necessarily disagree with what Luke wrote. I got, some of your listeners might have hate tweeted me. That's okay. I think there are some reasons maybe to question why it will work. But one thing you cannot question about this is like the level of excitement it's created. Yeah. And I wrote this last week or whenever it was that they parted ways with Mac. It's like part of making a new hire. Like one of the things is creating excitement. Like you need to get people on board. You need to get the fan base believing again. You need to get people cutting checks, donating money, buying tickets. And like for the next, what month is this? December. So like the next 8-9 months until the season starts, like UNC is going to be riding the wave of pub. It's going to be, it's going to be nonstop. So that, my impressions today, just the vibe of it, celebratory, anticipatory, excited. I mean, it was a sight to see.
Think about, the last time I was in Blue Zone was when UNC lost the state on the last couple minutes game. That's the last time I was in the Blue Zone. So think about where UNC football was then. Mac, the fight on the field, Mac Brown already fired. So there's no pomp and circumstance there. An ugly split with the athletic department, Bubba Cunningham and Mac Brown. And losing 4 straight to Diamond Dave Doran, getting beaten on their own field, 6-6, giving NC State a bowl appearance. And then think about where they are now, hiring the greatest NFL coach of all time, somebody that it just not in your wildest dreams would you kind of write up this story, but they made it happen. Let me set the scene a little bit here. So it's the who's who. Every local media person was there. You had news channels, news reporters, in addition to the sports reporters of the news stations. I counted 13 TVs at one point. I think News Observer, y'all probably had, I think, at least 5-6 people there. Inside Carolina was rolling deep. Yep. Yeah, and a photographer. And we
don't have many people left, and we had a lot.
That's right. And just stacks media. But then you have, Courtney Bankart walks in. Scott Forbes, baseball coach, walks in. Tons of Rams Club donors, former football players, some current football players, Travis Shaw, Bo Atkinson,
Julius
J.J.
Peppers,
Jones.
first row.
Yeah, so then it starts. It's 2:02, 2:04, and Steve Kirshner set the scene. And then, Julius Peppers walks in. Who walks in next to him? Who did he sit next to? It was somebody.
I cannot
don't know.
remember.
But he walks in with someone, and he obviously was back there with Belichick. Belichick walks in with Bubba Cunningham and Lee Roberts, the chancellor. Bill Belichick's 24-year-old girlfriend is front row with flowers in her hand.
Two huge bouquets.
Two bouquets. She is as expected, if not better. A nice-looking young lady. And then it was like classic press conference stuff. Bubba gives Bill Belichick the cutoff UNC sweatshirt, as cheesy as you can get. And then Bubba reveals the cutoff blazer, which he wore for the entire press conference. This is Bubba, a top 5 sitting athletic director in terms of esteem and reputation, wearing a cutoff blazer. I was surprised he kept it on. That's kind of what they did. And I thought Belichick came off like very impressive and like answered questions, not super long-winded, but direct and thorough enough. Didn't give away much, but kind of is just confidence, national, NFL championship, Super Bowl winning confidence and oozing strategy and his desire to be here, his desire to recruit, desire to win games. And it seems like he has a plan and he's going to roll with it. I mean, I came off, I guess I didn't really know what to expect, but more impressed. I think every UNC fan comes off more impressed and more excited after this press conference.
Yeah, you can see why the fan base is so excited. I mean, yeah, like, again, I think it's fair to have reservations about what kind of job Bill Belichick might do at 72. He's going to be 73 when the season starts. How does he adapt to the college game? Obviously, from an X's and O's standpoint, he's always been brilliant. There's no doubts there. They're not going to be losing these games, these kinds of games, in the kinds of ways that UNC has been losing under Mac Brown, like 70-50 to JMU, like the very sloppy loss against Virginia at home the year before that, going up to Boston College this past year and just getting rolled. I think those kinds of losses are now in the past. Fair to question things overall, I think. But like today was a total 100% win for Belichick, for the program. I mean, and yeah, like it's going to be interesting to see him interact. Let's say like it's mid-October, they just grind it out like some sloppy win against somebody, and there's like 6 people in his Monday press conference, and they're asking him scheme and strategy questions and stuff. And like, you're going to get a different version. You're going to get the surly version of Belichick probably in those moments. But today he was, presented a human side. He came prepared with a nice storyline about his dad, very heartfelt stuff, the sweatshirt, a beautiful touch. You got him to laugh, even, Ross. Like the big hitters only mention got probably the biggest smile out of Bill while he was up there.
Yeah. Avoided my question. Like a basic question. Hey, did you talk to Nick Saban and what questions do you have for him? And what
that is a sign. He does like playing things close to the vest. And I think that's the way it's going to be. I mean, one thing that's interesting, we had a small group of us had a chance to talk with Bubba Cunningham, the UNC AD, a little bit later after the presser. And he mentioned to us a brief little aside that I think your listeners will find interesting. Belichick is going to continue doing McAfee, and he's going to continue doing the Manning cast.
Shit.
Yeah, so like what great pub for UNC going forward. Who knows if it's going to be beyond the season or whatever. I'm sure it's, up for debate.
Oh, okay. Continue it through this season.
See how it goes, but he's going to continue it. There's no plans for him to stop doing that. And so that's going to be I imagine like a UNC infomercial at times. Like the reasons
Did he say anything about next year? Like, will he be doing McAfee next year?
That's the plan. Yeah, there's no plans for him to stop it. So as long as I think he enjoys it and wants to keep on doing it, I think that's the plan.
That's awesome. It's like
interesting.
Who's the college coach who still does the podcast up at Green Bay, Wisconsin? Gottlieb, yeah.
Yep.
Can't put his shorts on right.
And Coach K had his serious radio show.
Yeah.
And that is interesting. Like UNC fans, basketball fans especially, would always get frustrated. I'll put it like that, with like Coach K's media saturation. that, like, he had all these opportunities to be in the spotlight. He had this radio show, he was coach of USA basketball, whatever, all this stuff. And Belichick, I think, is going to be in the media limelight to a similar degree, sort of
Yeah.
like the college football version of K. He's going to be everywhere. Like, rival fans are going to get sick of seeing him. And so, like, all the stuff on the periphery, it's really encouraging. It's great news. People are pumped. And now it becomes a question of, like, whether this, very buttoned, well, not buttoned up literally, but like very formal, hardcore, old school ball coach, how that translates to college at 72, 73 years old, and what this thing actually looks like on the field. But the next 8, 9 months are going to be a lot of fun, I think, for UNC and UNC fans.
I think immediately you'll see, all right, what impact does this have? Does he sign Bryce Baker, the quarterback out of Kernersville? Can he retain some of the recruiting class? Like, that's the first kind of win he needs to have. Can he keep people out of the transfer portal, like a Travis Shaw, Amari Campbell, or gets the two kind of starterish players? And then, like, who can he get out of the transfer portal? That's kind of what you're going to see initially from him, as a first sign of his impact. All right, a couple of things you touched on. So we talked about how much he's in the media. What does this impact? Like, what is the true impact of all the attention UNC is getting right now? I mean, like, I think you responded to one of my tweets on Get Up. It was a topic on Get Up every morning, and then on First Take with Stephen A. Smith. It's been on CBS HQ, which I watch occasionally, NFL Network. It's like leading the A block of every station right now. And then they come back to it, after the commercial break. Like, what is the true benefit of that, you think, with the oversaturation in the news? It just shows you what kind of a persona and how big of a deal Bill Belichick is. But I'm not sure. I guess it can't hurt, but how much does it really help?
Yeah, I mean, that is my question. And I was joking with you on Twitter the other day about, you referenced the First Take thing. I think that you saw that segment. They're talking about Belichick. That was before it was official. But yeah, everyone was talking about it. Everyone continues to talk about it. And you do wonder, like, what is the tangible benefit ultimately of that media exposure? I mean, to me, it's, like, maybe this isn't a great thing in society now, but we have reached a point, I think, in sports media, in political media, even just in the world in general, where, like, it helps to be in the spotlight, like, for better or worse. Like, and sometimes I wish that maybe society was not so much wired that way, that, like, people would read more books or something and get off the internet. But the reality is, like, the more you're out there, the more people are familiar with your brand, the more people know who you are, what you're about. It's going to help you sell yourself. It's going to help North Carolina sell its football program. UNC football, again, like, to this point, not really a national program, not nationally known. Last ACC championship, 1980, 2 top 25 finishes the past 25 years. This hasn't been a program that's been on, like, the tip of anybody's tongues nationally, the way that you talk about Alabama or Georgia or even USC. Like, USC has not been particularly good under Lincoln Riley, but that's still like a brand. And so I think when you talk about, like, the hashtag brand, which, look, one part of me gets sick of that element of college athletics. But on the other hand, like, you do have to realize the reality that we're in, and the brand stuff matters, and raising your stature matters.
Yeah.
And so I think this stuff helps UNC, again, like, spread awareness and exposure about its program. I think it helps. I don't know, like, the recruiting benefit of it at this point. Certainly younger kids are online all the time, high school kids, whatever. I think there maybe could be a fringe benefit of that. But, like, it makes people interested in UNC football. I think it's sort of, in a way, I think it's comparable to Deion at Colorado, where Deion Sanders came in there, like, everyone was talking about Colorado football. And to a degree, everyone was still talking about Colorado football this year, where Deion Sanders became the spectacle. I mean, I do think it's apples and oranges to a bit, because Deion is like a master at that stuff. Like, he has a lot of charisma. He's, he's Deion Sanders. Like, he's one of the
Yeah.
original showmen in NFL history. And Belichick obviously doesn't have, that natural outgoing personality, but he's still Bill Belichick. Like,
Yeah.
6 rings and all that. So it
I think
helps the
recruiting
exposure and
wise,
the brand.
I think recruiting wise, yeah, I don't think high school kids are like locked in on Get Up with Mike Greenberg every morning, So
I can't wait to
think
watch it, they say.
Yeah, they're at school. They're watching First Take.
Just like reading the newspaper.
Yeah. I think the staff he hires, he says, I'm going to hire the best staff. Obviously, everybody's going to say that. That's going to be critical for recruiting. I'm interested to see kind of, is it all going to be NFL guys? Is he going to pick some regional guys, some North Carolina guys, like a Lonnie Galloway or a Dre Bly type? Not necessarily Dre Bly, but someone that's like, I can go get you players. Is it going to be NFL guys and just kind of rely on, I'm going to bring in the best minds in football? I'm also interested in the guy we missed, Michael Lombardi was the one who walked in with and sat next to Peppers. He is the only staff member we know outside of Freddie Kitchens. He's going to be the GM. And I spoke to him, and Adam Smith and some other people were in a little scrum with him after the press conference. He is going to be the GM. So he's going to have a whole team of scouts and GM personnel. They're going to run the recruiting, the high school recruiting, and the transfer recruiting side of things. So how that is all structured is going to be very different from what a lot of schools do and what UNC has done. And like you mentioned, this is an inflection point for UNC in terms of money, in terms of how they are aligning their staff and operations with the football department, because they've never had a GM like this who's going to run it like an NFL front office. So I'm interested to see the staff is going to be key. Like, you assume his son comes, and then I've heard Josh McDaniels is going to come. Like, I can't imagine Josh McDaniels in a mom's home, in Shelby, North Carolina, trying to recruit his kid. The guy was hated at the Raiders. So that's me big. Where he goes, and who he picks to be on his staff. All right, let's get you out of here on this. Give me the worst case scenario. Like, what is the worst case here? There's gonna be some early. Like, I think the floor is raised. So what's worst case when we look back in 2 years, 3 years, and then we'll go into best case?
I mean, I think worst case is he realizes like he doesn't like doing it and he just quits. And like, I don't think at this point like he's going to walk away and do anything dramatic like he did back in the day with the Jets. Yeah. Where like, if you remember that aspect of his past, like basically I think he left him at the altar more or less. Like, I don't see him doing that, but I could see him coaching a year and not liking it at all. And maybe the season doesn't go as well as he thought, or he gets frustrated with it, and he's like, you know what, I'm out. And that was one interesting thing I noticed about his term sheet today, with how much he's getting paid.
Can you explain some of the term sheet stuff too? Because I haven't seen it yet.
So like, it's the money is guaranteed for 3 years. So basically he does have a 5-year deal, but the final 2 years are not guaranteed. It's $10 million a year. Over 5 years. But again, only the first 3 guaranteed. It's a $1 million base salary. It's $9 million in supplemental income. That's like all the stuff that they that they load up your contract with. So it's not purely just state money. Gotcha. So you have a bunch of different sources of revenue going into that $9 million that he's getting, in addition to his $1 million base. And then obviously there's all these incentives and bonuses and stuff, and you can wind up making a ton of money if you win the ACC, you make the college football playoff, et cetera, et cetera. Chapel Hill Country Club membership, that's not bad.
Saw that.
That's a nice perk. And also too, I love this, and this is not unique to Belichick hardly, but like every coach at this level has like built-in spending money. Like we're going to pay you a ton of money, but then we're also going to give you spending money as part of your contract. So he has like an additional $100,000 expense kitty or whatever that he has access to, which just made me chuckle a bit. But no, the interesting thing about the buyout situation that I alluded to is that, so let's say like a Jet situation were to happen and he decides like in the coming months, guys, not for me. No thanks. I'm going to back out. So if you were to do that before, I think it's June 1st. I don't have it right in front of me. June 1st of next spring/summer, you would have to pay $10 million to get out of the contract. But if you did it after that date, only has to pay $1 million. So technically, he doesn't even have to coach a game, and he can get out of his contract for $1 million, which I found interesting. Like, I was surprised it's not a higher buyout on his end before even he coached a season. I mean,
so
again,
why do you think that is? Like, why do they?
I don't know.
Obviously
like,
written there for a reason.
It is, and I imagine maybe that's one of those things. And we didn't have a chance to ask Bubba about this because we talked to him before we saw this term sheet. But like in terms of why this deal maybe took a little while to put together, and there were rumblings for days that UNC was close and it's coming. They're going back and forth and finalizing things. I mean, maybe that was one of the things that they were going back and forth on, because I can't imagine that UNC folks were fired up about that provision, about the fact that like he could get out of this theoretically for $1 million, which is not any money hardly at all for Bill Belichick, before technically he even coaches. Do I think that's a likely thing? No, of course not. Obviously not. But like it is in there. I mean, that is a part of his deal.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, that would be the worst case for me. Like that he just gets sick of it. He realizes he doesn't like it, does it for a year, and bails and wants to go back to the NFL.
Another way you look at it is like in 3 years, he's just won 7 games, 8 games, 9
too,
games.
Like a repeat of Butch. Everyone, when I was covering UNC, and this was like 2012 through like 17, the Fedora years, really, most of them. And so this, like the memory of Butch was like very fresh in the hearts and minds of fans. Obviously, it led to all that stuff that happened after. But people really romanticize Butch Davis, which is curious to me because he never won more than 8 games. I don't think he ever beat NC State. Great defenses. He brought in great talent, but like he never got UNC close to an ACC championship, etc.
Yeah.
So like if the Belichick era were to mirror Butch, 8 wins, losing to State, whatever, that would be disappointing, I think.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a worse. Again, like to me, the worst case is this that he realizes, like, you know what, man, like I'm good.
he seems all in, and they asked him like why. I think it was Chip asked him like why are you doing this? You're 72.
Only Chip could ask that question because they're the same age.
Yeah, and he was like, look, I love coaching football. Like this is not a job to me. I truly love it. I'm sure he gets bored. I think when you're that old, you're like, it's that whole thing with
these guys
want to
coach.
Coaching.
They want to coach.
They retire, they think they're going to die.
Mac wants to keep going. Like I covered Bobby Bowden back in the day. Bobby Bowden did not want to retire. Like a lot of these aging coaches, the difference between Belichick and a Mac and a Bowden is like by the end of their tenures, those two guys looked pretty old. Bowden looked especially old. I mean, he was old. He was 80, I think.
Mac looked old.
Mac, I think the years wore on him. Belichick, you don't get the vibe that he's 72. Like he does.
He looks more like 65.
Yeah, he does carry himself.
Same with Saban. Saban did not look. Saban and Mac are the same age.
Right.
All right. Who was in the scrum with Bubba? Who was in the elite? Because that was like 30 minutes after the press conference. Because I stayed around for about 25 minutes.
It was me. It was Athletic was there. Brendan, Inside Carolina, Adam Smith, Andrew Jones from Tar Heel Illustrated, most of the local folks, Ted Keith from SBJ, Sports Business Journal.
Okay.
Aaron Beard, AP, little group of us.
Last question.
You love the local media questions.
Yeah. Best case scenario.
Best case scenario is like they do the dang thing, so to speak. And like they win the ACC, they make the playoff. Like, I think is that realistic? I mean, why not?
Winning the ACC is very realistic.
Not? SMU did it, or almost did it. They played for it. SMU made the playoff. I mean, why? I mean, there's no reason why even like NC State can't do what SMU did, or like a lot of schools can't repeat that. So like certainly a school like UNC with the resources and with the investment that they're making, like UNC is going all in to try to accomplish that. The question is like, does it finally, like after so many decades and near misses and worse than near misses and not even being close, like can they finally like get this thing going? I mean, there's been like it's a comedy of errors, UNC football. And the potential's always been there. And like, yeah, I mean, best case, at least winning the ACC and making the playoff, I think is doable. I mean, one of the trustees, Jennifer Lloyd, very outspoken. I think she's part of a group of powerful people at UNC that really, really wanted to make a push for football. And some of us talked with her today, and she's talking national championships. And look, it's great to have lofty goals. Do I think a national championship at UNC is realistic? I think there's a long way to go, for sure. Can they make the playoff though? Yeah. I mean, why not?
I think playoff is super realistic. Being a top 12 team, I mean, they've been in the top 10 under Mac.
Yeah, I think that's certainly realistic, and I think that's doable. I mean, the question is, like, you got to bring in enough talent, and you can't lose these boneheaded games, which I think is where he's really going to help.
Yeah,
like they're not going to be losing these idiotic games. I don't think. Like they could just get beat, but they're not going to get beat the way they've been getting beat.
All right, that's all the time we got. Don't want to hold you much longer, Andrew. Glad you turned me down twice to ACC Media Day. Got you on now. We'll have you on again maybe. I am so intrigued to see how this goes. Like every aspect of it, recruiting, transfer portal, in-game stuff, like who he brings on, the circus that it creates in Chapel Hill. So we'll stay tuned. All right, Andrew, appreciate your time. Big Hitters Only. Rate, review, subscribe, share, like, engage. Thanks, man.